indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for tonight's meeting, please?
Director Bill De La Pena.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Fox.
Here.
Director Gibson. Absent. Director Jones.
Here.
Okay. Just for the public's benefit, our air conditioning is out apparently, so do your best to bear with us. We're going to try to get through the meeting as soon as possible. So item number 3 is the public member interviews for the position of the COSCA board. And Shelley, are you going to provide a report for us on that?
I am going to provide the report, but you might want to start with, I can do the report first, or I don't know if you want to go through kind of part of the script
Maybe
first.
do the report, kind of lay it out, and then we'll start the interviews.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Fox. The COSCA Joint Powers Agreement states that the COSCA Board of Directors shall consist of 2 City Council members, 2 CRPD board members, and 1 private citizen who resides within the boundaries of the city and the district. The private citizen member must be nominated by the other 4 board members and then appointed by mutual agreement by the City Council and CRPD board. The City Clerk began the 2015 recruitment process for the COSCA board vacancy on March 31st, 2015, and 7 applications were received during the filing period. Board member terms are for 4 years, and the new member will serve through June 2019. The interview order to be followed tonight was determined using the most recent alphabetical listing published by the California Secretary of State and used in the city's recent special election, and it's listed in the staff report and in the interview packets. And I'm available for questions.
Any questions to staff before we conduct the interviews?
I think, good evening, and I apologize for my tardiness. I think I've been on this for several years now, and I think this is the first time we're conducting this. Have we not had enough applicants before, or as many before?
I'll let John Prescott answer that. Thanks.
No, this is the first time we've actually recruited in quite a while. And although the public member does have a term limit, none of the other members of the COSCA board have term limits. They're appointed by the separate public agencies. So it really was really something that was an oversight in not bringing it forward before this. But it came to our attention that the term of the public member has expired, and therefore it's appropriate to go through the interviews and select a public member for nomination to the respective agencies.
So is this the first time that we published and recruited, or have we not published the position before?
Well, we have, but it was quite a while ago that it was published.
Was it back in the 80s or 90s?
I think the most recent time was in the 90s.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
All right, so just by way of process, we have 7 applicants, and we're going to conduct brief interviews that will be done in public. We're going to ask the applicants that are not currently getting interviewed to step outside. I believe we have another room or someplace for you to go. And then we're going to call you in rank order. Now, before we do that, if you have a public comment card that you want to put public comment in on this item prior to the interviews, now would be the time to do that. Do we have any public comments on this item? All right. So without no public comments, Mr. Fortman, you're going to be the first, Mr. Foreman, rather, you're going to be the first interviewee. So Ms. Skay, Mr. Sefrain, Borio, Mr. Martin, Mr. Gitt, and Mr. Pumphrey. I'm going to ask you to step outside.
Just follow Mr. Matt.
Yeah. Do you have the podium mic there, John? Okay. All right. So, Mr. Foreman, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to make a brief opening statement just to tell us a little bit about your background and your experience. And then I'm going to open it up to questions of the board. All right? So,
okay.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you're applying for this position?
Okay, I'm from Boston. I came to California, worked in the high-tech area. I have an electrical engineering degree and an MBA. In 2002 or 3, I lost my position in the Bay Area and moved here. But prior to that, I went to West Valley College, and I was in the park management program. And there they trained me to be a park ranger. And I started on the second phase of my career, which was more in the natural science. I've developed a passion for the open space, sustainability, and worked up in the Bay Area in a variety of maintenance and ranger positions. Then about 7 years ago, I moved here. And I've been involved with COSTAC. I'm a member of COSTAC, been on the COSTAC board 2 terms, 3 years each. I've been involved with all the range of programs, Adopt a Trail, Trail Patrol. I'm the outreach coordinator for COSTAC. And I'm also somewhat of an activist in the city. I've been involved with the Vision 2064. I was trying and instrumental in trying to get some focus on and priority for our open space. I think one of our top priorities is one that I had suggested, to increase funding for our open space trailheads. And now I work here for the city in the water conservation area, and I've kind of moved into an adjacent, closely aligned field in the area of sustainability, which means solar, water conservation, and so on. I recently took a course at Pace University, their law center, land use. So I have a copy of the, I don't know if you want to see this, but some things it's all about law and land use. Sustainability.
Where did you say you were
This
taking?
is it was a online course.
Pace.
The company is the university is located up in White Plains. So
You gotta go, because we need to get your comments on the record. We need to get your comments. I'm just going to do my best to, yeah.
So again, it's to me, I have a passion for the open space. I have a passion for protecting the open space, and that means any type of waste or hazardous waste or anything coming into our open space affecting the watershed. And so I'm hoping to move into this other position here at City Hall in sustainability, and so that's my new career.
All right. I think I'm going to go right down the line, so I'll go to Ms. Bill De La Pena if there's questions, and then to Director Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Foreman, and thank you for applying to serve as the public representative on COSCA. I do appreciate it.
Yes.
Obviously, there is plenty of interest in our city's beautiful open space. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing COSCA in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it's not so much the growth of our open space. Certainly we want to complete the green ring around the city, and I'm certainly all for that, and I think we've got funding to do that, to acquire additional land. But I'm more interested in opening the open space up and making it more accessible for people. I'm interested in getting the children, I've been involved with the Trail Education Days here, but I think I've been pushing for an interpretive center, interpretive trail, so we can introduce the kids to the natural ecology, and introduce them to the concept, what the drought has been doing to our open space. So I'm all for getting the kids involved, and I think that's an area where we need to move into. I think focus more. Put a little more effort in. We do a great job at COSTAC with Trail Watch, Adopt a Trail, Trail Education Days, outreach, and so on. But there's I think the interpretation side of it is a component we need to put a little more effort into.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Director Jones, do you have any questions?
Yes, the sheet you just handed us.
Yes.
Coupled with your remarks and your application are extremely impressive. And I'm just wondering, you're doing so much right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think being on this board would afford you to do that you're not doing already?
Yeah, so I think being on this board, it takes me from kind of the tactical day-to-day thing to a more strategic position, having more influence on increasing our open space. Hopefully, maybe I can leverage my position on the board to, incorporate some new programs here in the open space. I'm very interested in, continuing to push sustainability in the city, land use as it applies sustainability, bike pathways to interconnect our open spaces, and I'm hoping that I can have more of an influence by being a COSCA director.
Well, let me just say that your testimony here tonight, plus the sheet you handed us, I'm glad you did this, because what you gave us earlier was not nearly as impressive as what we've seen here tonight.
Yeah, this is a
I would like to thank you for applying. You're very highly qualified.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Foreman, thanks very much. We appreciate, again, your application. You can go ahead and have a seat if you'd like. Ms. Skay will be our next applicant. No, you can sit in. It's your choice. Good evening, Ms. Gay.
Good evening, directors.
So I'm just going to ask you to give us a brief background and experience of your qualifications that you feel make you the most qualified person for service on the COSCA Board of Directors. And then there will be other board members that will follow up with their own
Very
questions.
good. Well, as you know, I have been a board member on COSCA as the public member since about 1981. I wasn't the first public member. There was another gentleman who preceded me when the agency was formed in 1977. And I've served at the pleasure of you all, and of course the respective agencies, the City of Thousand Oaks and Caneo Recreation Park District. At that time, I was not employed when I was brought on. I helped form a nonprofit called Caneo Nature Preserve that advocated for the formation of this body, and I worked. I was with the League of Women Voters on a number of county projects when Supervisor. Director Jones was county supervisor. But my background, my educational background with a master's degree in environmental science and a bachelor's degree in biology, and my great interest in native habitat, and wildlife connection really made me very interested in helping with the formation of this body. I was very pleased to be chosen at that time to be the public member. As you may know, since then I have been an employee of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, which is a state agency. I'm the deputy director of that entity, and also Chief Deputy Executive Officer of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, which is another joint powers agency between Caneo Recreation Park District, Rancho Simi Rec and Park, and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. So I guess just to, without getting too deep in the weeds on all the things I've done, I think my main concern is the protection of what the city and the Park District have worked so hard to preserve over all these decades, a ring of open space, public open space for the benefit of its citizens and also for the wildlife and critters that live therein, and its importance as a regional, in fact, even a nationally significant piece of open space protected in the Santa Monica Mountains and nearby. The public member, in my view, is very important because that member serves as a bridge between the city and the Park District. And I can't remember many or any circumstances where there was a schism between the city council members and the park board members where I had to be a tiebreaker. But that is always a possibility, and I think that does militate for you choosing a public member who can be very even and look at all the issues and try to bring the other agencies together for the good of our open space.
Okay, very good. Ms. Bill Della Pena?
Thank you. Good evening, Rory. It's different to be interviewing you from across here. I'm so used to you're sitting next to me. And again, as we learned tonight, this is the first time we're doing this in several decades. And I am actually surprised about that. But the question I would like to ask you is, what are your top 3 priorities for COSCA?
Well, the obvious is, completing the ring of open space, but I think that's well on its way. That's a track. I think probably more critical for the ongoing years is the management of that open space, and it's always a struggle for funding for park rangers and day-to-day management. But I think that's where the agency really needs to be focused on trying to find some other funding sources. Very difficult thing to do, but to make sure that there's a commitment from the Park District and the city to continue to well manage these open space resources, both for the recreational aspects and for the habitat protection aspects. I think that's extremely important to the citizens. It seems to be borne out every time there's an attitude survey, and just for the good of the region.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bill Della Pena. Director Jones?
Yes, Ms. Gay, I appreciate your applying again. And obviously, by reading your resume and knowing personally your accomplishments, I think you've done an awful lot of good on this board and for the open space. Let me ask you, based on your wide experience and specifically on this board, do you, and maybe you have asked this or answered this in the question that Councilwoman De La Pena just asked, but is there anything in particular that you, with your vantage point, would correct about this organization that you think might need correcting?
The only thing that comes to mind, I think it's really run very well with the comity of the city staff and the Park District staff really working together and having the management, the COSCA manager in place. I think I think there should be a replacement for the staff position that's been lost. Mm-hmm. I think there's so much going on. There's so many opportunities that really require more than one person to manage grant writing, really looking after more potential land donations, which could well be out there. But I think it requires a dedicated staff person, I think, to make that happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just postscript, I was not trying to imply that Ms. Austin is not dedicated. So
I knew it was going to be a ticklish question when I asked it.
Rory, that's all the questions we have. We
right.
very much appreciate your past service and your willingness to continue to serve.
Thank you very much.
You can go ahead and have a seat if you'd like.
All right. I think I'll go back to the other.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's Steve, or it's actually food? Is it food and drinks in the other room? Okay.
Greg Fernandez's last name.
Water and cookies. Yeah, you can also go grab water and cookies and come back.
Well, now you leave.
Water, cookies.
Well, cookies, you know.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Mr. Safane, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to come out and place your application in for consideration for the public member of the COSCA board. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to ask you a few brief questions. I'm going to ask you basically a general opening statement just about your background and your experience and why you think you're qualified for the position. And then I'm going to turn it over to the other board members to ask you a question as well.
Okay.
All right. So just begin by giving us a brief background of your experience and why you think you're qualified for this position.
Okay. Well, my name is Greg Safane. I'm 25 years old, and I just moved to Thousand Oaks. Really, the main reason what caught my eye, I read in the article that this position was available, and the main reason why I wanted to apply for this position is I've always had a background in service. It's important to me, especially when you live in a city that you love to live in. It's the least that you can do to give back to the community. I just graduated from USC in 2013, but I spent a majority of my elementary education in Simi Valley, went to Santa Susana High School, and I served on the community councils there for student assembly. Later, I went on to Moore Park Community College, where I was the finance director as the student representative in the state senate. Primary policy was there, very similar to a lot what city council and what you guys do every day is debating, understanding policy, and finding ways to work together to balance a budget and really find ways to benefit the community and the people around you, which is sort of what I feel like this board does. I've lived in Thousand Oaks now for almost a year, and the one thing that I really love about living in Thousand Oaks is I'm an athlete, and I love that there are so many trails around the area to enjoy every day. I mean, every Saturday I'm hiking somewhere, enjoying the environment that I get to live in. And, you know, when this position came up, I was like, well, you know, this is perfect for me because I'm out there every weekend. I see sort of the dangers, the threats, or like what possibilities, what improvements we can make. And I really would enjoy getting the opportunity to sit on the board and work with you guys to find ways to continue to develop the trail system and find ways to just make it better for our community.
Okay. We appreciate that. Ms. Bill DePlater.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your interest in wanting to become a public servant. I'm looking at your resume, and obviously you have, it's very impressive. And I hear now from you that you love the outdoors, you love to hike, and your resume sounds to me a little politically oriented. And so my question is, how do you connect politics to the open space?
Politics is always, I mean, politics is everywhere. I mean, you can't even go into a finance firm without finding some type of politics going around. But the way that I find politics, and I define politics as policy. I mean, it's not I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm an independent. It's not all these like different ideologies. It's more of, well, what does the law say and how can we better it for the community around us? And so what I've learned in my experience and working is, I would take away is that I've worked with a lot of different people who have different ideologies, but what I pride myself on is my ability to find ways to connect the dots. I'll have a different viewpoint than you do on what we should do with a specific trail, but I guarantee you if we all sit and talk about, there are different ideas that we can all open each other's eyes to say, that's a good idea, but let's make a quick change here, and then we have something even better. It's more about the team to develop the policy for the people that you're serving. And that, to me, is how I kind of see how I would transfer it over into this job. It's the people enjoy the parks. They enjoy going on the trails. That's something that we all enjoy every day, whether that's a family outing on a Friday evening or it's the first thing we do on a Saturday morning is taking our kids or just going for our own walk. But there are ways that we can work together to find ways to better that experience for the people, because in the end of the day, it's not what's better for this person or what's better for this person. It's what's better for the city of Thousand Oaks and the community that enjoys it every week.
So we know that the open space and the trails can bring together people from all walks of life, obviously. Yeah. And what, if anything, do you feel needs to change in the way we manage our open space?
I feel that the two most important things that I would personally like to bring is progress and protection. It's no surprise to anyone on the council. We've gone through one of the hardest droughts that this state has ever seen, and I feel that moving forward, we need to start looking into taking action to help protect ourselves from the possibility of fires. I know one of the things growing up and going through high school, especially in Ventura County, is we don't have snow, but we have fire seasons. And every time that there would be fire, it not only destroys the environment that we live in, especially the trails, but it also has the possibility of affecting the community around us. And some of the trails actually set on real property that are close to homes. And we need to start looking into, well, what can we do? What organizations can we start looking into to help us find ways to eliminate as much possibility for fire protection that we possibly can? Not to mention that moving shortly, we're supposedly having the threat of an El Nino. And I know I don't need to tell you, but when you go on a trail after it's rained, there's a lot of possibility of not only that the trail has been damaged by mudslides or by the destruction of rocks coming down, but we need to find ways to make sure that we have drought protection and fire protection, because realistically, at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that those trails stay open so that people get a chance to enjoy them as much as possible.
Thank you.
Director Jones.
Well, you've given such full and complete answers to what you've been asked already. It's kind of taken some of the thoughts of questions that I had in mind. Let me ask you this. I see that you've been active in student affairs and in many capacities in working with other people. How do you like serving on a board, and how do you like serving with other people? You mentioned politics. Let's think of it in perhaps not as glowing a definition that you gave. I liked your definition, by the way. I wish it were always like that. Yeah. What would you see as what have you found in serving with other people on boards before?
Well, I serve right now as the chairperson for the Energy Committee for the Ventura County Chamber of Commerce, or for the City of Ventura Chamber of Commerce. And what's interesting to me is that every time that I walk into that room, that not everyone in that room thinks like you do. You may think like, okay, renewable energy is definitely the way to go. Some people think oil is the way to go. And then some people think, well, no, solar is definitely the future of our industry. There's a lot of people with different viewpoints. But at the end of the day, the decisions that you make together are going to dramatically affect the people that you represent, or the people that you are working together. And I think the one thing that I can say that I've learned about politics in my short career that I've had is that there's not enough center on the people that you're serving. So you need to start thinking more of, well, I know what I believe in, but I need to start thinking about, well, what does the community need? And sometimes if the voice of your board outweigh you, that is the best idea, then you need to learn to humble yourself and take a step back and say, okay, for this time, this is the idea that needs to benefit our community. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that you are the voice for. Those are the people that you are representing. And the voice of the many outweigh the few. And you need to start learning to humble yourself before you put yourself as the overarching voice of that position.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Safane. We appreciate you putting in the application. Relatively new to Thousand Oaks, so we want to welcome you. We're very proud of our community. And just to let you know, there's many opportunities to get involved. And so we look forward to seeing your active participation in the future.
I appreciate it. If you don't mind, is there a possibility for me to ask you guys just one question? If it's not too much trouble?
Why not? We'll give it a shot here.
If there is one overarching problem that you guys have faced throughout your 10 years sitting on the board, what's the hardest part of your job that you guys have faced in dealing with the numerous amount of open space that you guys have to manage, and not to mention make very critical decisions for this community every week, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll take a shot at it. It's balancing the resources, minimal resources, with huge community need. And it's budget, but it's also, we rely on a lot of volunteer folks, but balancing the resources is always a challenge, particularly when you're dealing with open space, which is very important in our community. But it's not what a lot of people align with basic municipal services, public works, streets, public safety, those things. So it's a big deal here in Thousand Oaks, and it's a big deal. That's why this agency, this JPA, is actually very unique to have this partnership with the Park District. If we're not for this partnership, we wouldn't have anywhere near the success we've had in the open space. But again, thanks again for your application.
Thank you.
Thanks for your willingness to serve. And
I appreciate the time.
You bet. All right.
Take care.
So our next candidate is Christina Boero. Ms. Boero, good evening.
Good evening.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first thank you for your willingness to serve and filling your application to be considered as the public member for the COSCA Board of Directors. I'm going to ask you just a general kind of a opening statement. Tell us a little bit about your background and your experience, why you think you're qualified for the position, and then the other board members will ask you a question as well.
Okay, right. Director Fox.
So you can start off by tell us a little bit about you, your background, and why you think you're qualified.
Okay. Thank you, board members, for this opportunity. My name is Christina Boero, and professionally, I'm a land use planner. I've been with the County of Ventura in the planning division for about 10 years now in their current planning section, but I do everything from commercial permits to agricultural residential permits. I have a master's in public policy and administration from California Lutheran University, and I've been in the county residing for 12 years. And I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Southern California in political science. And I think I'm qualified for the job because, as Ventura County expands with its population, it's still critical to have this open space, urban balance. And to protect that, I think my background in land use planning and implementing plans and policies of the general plan and area plans with habitat conservation and open space policies, I think I'd have a keen insight and a different insight into implementing the 11 or 12 policies that the COSCA board has.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Bill de la Pena.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Boero. I'm sorry. In reading, going over your resume, it is a very nice resume. Your experience with land use and so forth. My question is, how familiar are you with COSCA, and what do you see as the biggest challenges facing COSCA?
Well, I did have a chance to, review the policies and what COSCA is about. I am interested in being a board member because I do value like I said before, the balance between habitat conservation, wildlife conservation, agricultural conservation, and the urban landscape. And can you repeat the second part of that question?
And what are the main challenges facing COSCA?
I think probably one of the main challenges is as our county expands, there's more people, and a lot of the people come from very urbanized areas. So I think education about the different trails we have, the different open spaces we have. We have COSCA manages 1,594 miles of open space. Acres of open space. So I think the just educating the public on, habitat conservation, brush clearance policies, historic preservation, just everything about what COSCA is about and wants to achieve. I think that's important for the public to know about.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Director Jones.
Yes, Miss, is it Boero?
Boero, like bow and arrow.
Yeah, I was very impressed with your resume.
Thank you.
Let me say, I read a lot of environmental impact reports, and it's nice to meet someone that has to write them. I guess writing them, it seems like a lot of work to read them, but I presume writing them is even more difficult. You certainly have the background to understand, obviously, with your land use planning background. And I like what you had to say about the various needs just now of the COSCA board. What do you feel that you might be able to accomplish with a 4-year term here on this COSCA board?
Probably going back to Director Bill de la Pena's question, just education of the public. In prior career, I was actually a paraprofessional with the Conejo Valley School District, so I did educate and help special needs children in elementary school level. So, and I think that's the level that is important to start out having a understanding and a love for open space and nature. So I think just working with the different members of the board and working with the public and all the other agencies that would have input into the policies of COSCA in their management plan, I just think that, getting that on board and having a program that's liked and understood by the elementary children would be something that I want to do.
Well, I think those are very laudable goals, and thank you very much for applying.
Thank you.
Ms. Burrow, again, we want to thank you for putting your application and your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
And we just, there's, as I mentioned in the last candidate, lots of opportunities for service here in Thousand Oaks. We look forward to seeing you in the future as well.
Thank you. I've grown to love the city, so.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. All right, our next candidate will be Billy Martin. Mr. Martin, good evening.
Good evening.
Move over there. There you go.
There you go.
So we're going to ask 3 questions. I'm going to ask you just an opening general question, a little bit about your background experience, why you think you're qualified for the position of the public member of the COSCA board. We do appreciate you taking the time to make an application for this position, and then each of the directors will ask you a question as well.
Okay.
So why don't you start by just telling us about your background and why you believe you're qualified?
I've been in Thousand Oaks since 1977, and I've grown to love the city during that time period. And when I think of open space, I think it's the foundational keystone to what makes up Thousand Oaks. And my particular area of interest in it, and this wasn't the question, is the integration of the living with the open space. To me, it's all one thing. But as far as background, I got involved in the community right when I showed up in Thousand Oaks. I was involved with the Tim Conway Celebrity Golf Benefit, working on the marketing side. I got my first job at the Thousand Oaks News Chronicle, working for Milton Toll and Lawrence Blakesley. I soon left the newspaper business and started Westlake Magazine and started an ad agency, and I came back around. I stayed in Thousand Oaks. I wasn't active in the too much in the public figure, but at one time I worked on the Bruce Jenner Celebrity Golf Benefit, and I was on the United Way. I was in charge of the campaign when our ad agency handled it for United Way of Ventura County with the Buck Stops Here local program, and I believe that was in the mid '80s. I was vice president of the Westlake Village Chamber of Commerce. I was on the board, I was on the team that built Westlake Village corporate identity, helped design the corporate logo, which works as their city seal now, and as well as their logo. And it's still in existence today, and that was back in 1981. In 2000, I got re-involved with the city, and that was actually when they started the copper curtain. Actually, prior to that, I got involved with some of the candidates that were running for city council, and brought the idea of Adopt an Oak to the city, and through. Oh gosh, I can't remember. Dan Del Campo during a campaign rally at Old Oak Meadows Park. At any rate, in 2000, I got involved with the Copper Curtain. After the Civic Arts Plaza was built, I'd come back closer to the city with my business, and during the period since then, I've been involved in a lot of community projects and city projects. Most recently, the Golden Oak Memorial. I sat on the environmental committee for the city. It was my idea to have the Golden Oak Memorial planted at the City Hall. I have a great interest in saving the oak as an umbrella portion of the agency. Anyway, I don't know if that's enough.
No,
I
that's
also
very
did the historical calendar for the city.
Thank you.
And I'm running the Caneo Valley Film Festival, now in our 4th year.
All right. Let's build on it later.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Martin, and thank you for applying to be on this in this position. Now, the question I have is, what do you see as the main challenges facing COSCA over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think the challenge in any kind of agency that's a public agency affiliated with the government is the interaction and the influence of the city as a whole. I think that there's always a public awareness situation that needs to be dealt with. And as I opened up saying that it's a foundational keystone to this city, I understand maybe as much as that we might be the largest percentage of open space of any city in the United States. And I think that's a sense of pride. I think that's a sense of public awareness can be built in that regard. I don't think it's so much that COSCA is involved in having trails for people to hike and climb. I see it more as integrated into the actual living fabric of the city, and it distinguishes us from so many cities, not only in Southern California, but in the United States of America. So I think integrating the awareness, making the public aware, and restoring the pride in that portion of this city as one of its greatest attributes is a challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Jones.
Mr. Martin, thanks. I really am impressed with all you've done for this community, and I'd like to publicly thank you for all of that. That's very good of you, and I'm sure this city is a better place because of your contributions. I'd like to know.
It's a great place.
I'd like to know how you would translate that into being a board member. What those attributes that you have and you've clearly demonstrated, how do you feel that would be beneficial in the context of being a member of this board?
You know, I don't actually think it's the best place for me to apply my knowledge and the kind of thing that I do for the city, actually sitting on the board. But I believe I would work better kind of as a contractor, as a business person working through the board, but I didn't want to make this as a pitch for that. Short of that, I get involved with the agency, and I would bring a publicity factor into it, and I would, I think the hook right now, the hook that's being missed, I think it's too big to think of this giant ring of green so much in terms of day to day. But I think what's happened in the city recently with the oak tree, I think we can make a connection through the oak tree to the public and back to the board. And I don't know if that makes any kind of sense, but that's how I would try to approach it.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin, thanks again, not just for your application, but you really are very active in the community, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I ditto that. I see you all everywhere. You're doing a good job.
Mr. Tony Gitt will be our next candidate. Gitt Tony. Yeah.
Oops, I'm sorry. Good luck, Tony.
Right there at the podium. Good evening, Mr. Gitt.
Good evening.
First, let me start off by thanking you for your interest in serving on the COSCA board. We're going to ask you 3 questions, essentially. I'm going to ask you just a general opening statement, if you will, about your background and experience, why you believe you're qualified. And then each of the board members will ask you a question as well.
Okay.
So that'll be our process. So if you can just open up by giving us a brief background of your qualifications and experience and why you want to serve on the COSCA board.
So I've spent my life in the aerospace industry and have a lot of experience in developing missiles and GPS receivers and inertial navigation systems and things like that. None of which, of course, has much to do with COSCA. I think we're blessed. I'm blessed to live here and to be part of this. And I was thinking about, if I had to sum up what COSCA means to me, it's in a motto. It would be a takeoff on the protect and serve that the police department has. It would be protect and preserve, because we're blessed to have this, and I want to do anything I can to preserve it, to fill in the gaps, to try to expand it, to maintain it, and to make sure that it's here for our grandchildren and my grandchildren and your grandchildren and so forth. So anything that I can do to help with that. I'm retired now. I'm currently participating on the Measure I Oversight Committee for the school board on the new bond measure that was passed by the voters last November. I retired about a year ago, and so I have time to devote to those kinds of things. And right now, I would love to be a participant in this. I like to hike the area here, especially the Hillcrest open space in back of my home. I live in Westlake Hills. I've lived here since 1985. I love to hike the Broome Ranch area, and especially like to hike up Boney Mountain, one of my favorite hikes. So my approach to this and my qualifications for it are really that I like to gather all the data, organize it in a way that makes sense so that I can make the best possible decisions on what needs to be done, and work as part of a consensus team to try to do that.
All right. Appreciate it. Very good. Ms. Bill de la Pena.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gitt. I really admire your enthusiasm for wanting to serve our city. I really do appreciate that. And I'm going to ask you a question that I have asked of most of the applicants this evening, which is, what do you see as the main challenges facing COSCA in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I'm concerned about, as Thousand Oaks obviously has reached build-out, and the pressures to encroach on the open space and to build on what's left, and instead of filling in the gaps and trying to make the open space really ring the valley here. I really would like to see additional funding made available so that we can purchase more land that would fill in those gaps and to maintain it. I love the idea that, we finally got the trailhead at Potrero after 6 years of a lot of work and a lot of public opinion and comment. And it turned out after, going from the original idea of 200 people down to something that's very manageable and doesn't impose on the real land there. Those kinds of things are the kind of thing that I really would like to participate in and help with, to make sure that we do the best job we can to maintain it, to expand it, and to preserve it.
Thank you. Mr. Director Jones.
Yes, thank you for applying, Mr. Gitt. Let me put, if you won't mind a short digression. My wife, for my birthday, just gave me that book about the Wright brothers by David McCullough, and I was wondering if you'd like to analyze that plane that they flew at Kitty Hawk in 1903 with one man lying down in it.
It was a miracle that it got off the ground, but it had to happen.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have a great background, and your answers to questions tonight indicate that you have a great knowledge of our trail system and the things that are needed. And I specifically like what you said to Board Member De La Pena about resisting attempts to perhaps go into the open space that we have already. And I believe that's going to be a challenge, and I appreciate your having that view. Let me ask again a question that I've asked others. What do you think might be your best contribution, given your background and your knowledge and so forth, and your experience here in Thousand Oaks? What would be, do you think, your best contribution that you could make as a member of this board?
Well, I think filling in the gaps, how to do that and raise the funds. I know you have some funds, you have a funds, but I don't know if you have enough. And how do you entice people who own this land to make it available for sale? And I would like to spearhead a campaign to move ahead and encourage that and to speed it up so that we do get all this land and these gaps filled in and dedicated so that nothing else can happen to them.
Good. Thank you very much, and thanks for applying.
I just want to echo that. We want to thank you for taking the time to put your application in. We very much appreciate your willingness to serve. And just as a reminder, there's many opportunities to serve here, so we look forward to seeing you in the future and maybe a different capacity. So we appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks. And our final candidate is Ben Pumphrey. Mr. Pumphrey, good evening.
Good evening.
So by way of process, we're going to ask you 3 questions. First, let me just thank you for taking the time to put your application in and your willingness to serve on the COSCA board, and we appreciate that very much. So I'm going to open up with just asking you a general, kind of an opening statement, a little bit about your background and your qualifications, and then the other board members will ask you a question as well.
Very good.
So, floor is yours.
So as an opening statement, I would like to bring your attention to first my education and corporate background, my current position as a business coach, certified business coach, working in the community, for the community, helping businesses. As a startup myself, I'm taking on a number of organizations that, they're struggling. They've either come, from a high place down to a low place, or I have one young man, he's 27 years old, he's got a software company working with Los Robles Hospital, so I'm teaching him how to be successful in life as a person and as a business, and it's that kind of spirit that I bring to the table. I've been working in various positions throughout my corporate life. I have a broad range of skills that I can bring to the table and to the board, all the way from strategic management, financial management, marketing, so economic development, sales, just about anything that the board would encounter in terms of administration and in terms of dealing with the public and private funds. I'm very skilled and versed, and I'm easy to work with, but very knowledgeable. Let's get to the part of public lands and public service. I have been blessed to have been part of this community for 15 years. Every time I get a chance, anybody that knows me, they know I'm out on the trail hiking somewhere, or down at the beach enjoying, that area, or out of parks. I go to all the free activities that are available. I just enjoy the heck out of it, and I'm proud to be a member of this community. I want to give back to it. Before that, I came from San Diego. I've camped all over the United States, many, many places in the world, actually. So I'm a knowledgeable outdoorsman. I can fish with anybody, and so it's the spirit that's the important thing. It's the ability to understand how you can give back and create for other people. The most exciting thing in my entire life was when I was able to teach my own children how to be outdoors people. I got a girl and a boy, and have them teach my grandchildren and see it spread, because this community has a treasure, and I know each and every one of you know that this treasure has to be protected, and it has to be protected with people with spirit and with people with knowledge and people that know how to get things done, and I do know how to get things done. I have a history. You see my resume. You know that I care. You know that I have the ability.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pumphrey. Ms. Bill De La Pena.
Thank you, and it's good to see you again, Mr. Pumphrey.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a question that I've been asking of most of the candidates this evening, which is, what do you see as the main challenges facing COSCA over the next 5 to 10 years?
Number one challenge is that the community continues to grow, and finding the balance between the open space and the need for economic development will continue to be a pressure at a higher rate. There'll be larger businesses and more of them. They will have the economic wherewithal to, at times, put a challenge, because you have to have that balance. You can't stop economic growth, but on the other hand, you cannot thwart what we've done here. So to find that balance is going to be difficult. You're going to have solid strategic plans. You're going to have outstanding communication. You're going to have collaboration. And you're going to have to select businesses that understand and want to participate the way this community was set up.
Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Pumphrey, for applying. And
thank you.
I've seen a lot of resumes. Yours is about the most thorough and complete, I think, that I've ever seen. Based on your background, and I see it's extensive in many areas, what do you think you could specifically bring to this board to be of help to COSCA in general?
Thank you for asking that question, because this is the one I really wanted to answer. In the last few months, I've spent over 500 hours in retraining myself. As extensive of a background as I had, I wanted to retrain myself, train myself to be even better than I ever was as a business person and as a person. I have an extensive background, and I'm backed by a tremendous organization. Many of you know who Brian Tracy is. He's one of my leaders. So I'm backed by an organization that cares about community, and we know how to help people. And we know that we have tools. I have goal-setting tools, time management tools, strategic management tools, sales tools, collaboration tools, performance improvement tools. I've mastered all of them. These fundamental skills are necessary for this board to be strong and to move forward. And I know I can work with you and help you. Sometimes there'll just be a need for someone to have a special ability. And what I don't have, my organization has. It's one of the most beautiful organizations in the entire world. And I spent a lot of time researching and studying before I even became part of it. And so therefore, I know that my acumen in the business world and my love and desire of nature, my care for this community, and my ability to collaborate and work with people of all personalities, all backgrounds, all cultures, all ages, would be a tremendous benefit to this organization.
Well, good. Thank you very much for applying.
Thank you, Mr. Pumphrey. Again, thank you very much for your willingness to serve. You're obviously a very accomplished guy, and as I've told all the candidates, many opportunities to serve here in Thousand Oaks in a variety of capacities. So we look forward to seeing you in the future as well.
And I've applied for many of them, and hopefully I will get the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, that completes our interviews of the candidates. You can have a seat, Mr. Pumphrey, if you want. We're going to invite the other candidates in if they'd like. We'll wait for them to come in, and then we'll have some board discussion. And okay.
Thank you.
Well, actually, to give it to the clerk.
Mr. Gitt, how large is that bond issue that you're helping to administer? What? I wish you'd been with the LA Community College District when they got their bond, because they did not manage it very well. Maybe that's the reason.
All right, so let me just start off, and then I'll turn it to the board. Claudia mentioned I've sat on this board now for more than 2 decades, and I don't remember a time that we did this. That doesn't mean much, because I've forgotten a lot in the last 21 years, but I don't remember going through this process certainly very often, and certainly not this extensive. And I wanted just to congratulate all of the candidates. As I sat and listened to you, 3 things struck me. One is you're all extremely qualified, and you're qualified in your own unique way. And then secondly is your diversity, the diversity that you have brought, and that's why I mentioned the city needs folks like you. And so just your wide, varied, and diverse backgrounds has been, really, really nice to see. And then finally, again, in your own unique way, the passion that you bring to wanting to serve our community. It is totally in alignment with folks that have sat up here, that sit on the Park District Board, that sit on the City Council. These are folks that care a lot about this community, and it's obvious that you all care very much about this community. So those are my overall observations, and I'm going to turn it over to my fellow board members now for a nomination and some deliberation in a selection process. There you go. See, if you stay silent long enough.
Well, we do try to take turns. We had Mr. Fox from the city speak, and we usually then toss it over to the Park District.
Now, wait a minute. You've gone second here all night.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Don't
we were waiting and looking at you. Please go ahead then.
You want me to go ahead? Well, I'm not ready to make a nomination. I would just make some general comments. I have never seen a more qualified group of people apply for a position as you people here tonight. And I've been on a lot of boards. And let me say that in the many years that I've served, similar to Mr. Fox here, on various boards, this is one of the least desirable jobs that one has. It's not particularly thrilling to be a candidate and have to get up before God and everybody and talk and answer questions and so forth. But it's not thrilling to have to make a judgment either. After hearing so many well-qualified people, I could go one by one and list your strengths, but the other board members have heard you just as much as I have. I'm still in the process of consideration and trying to evaluate, and it's a difficult process. So I'm still thinking, if that helps, Claudia, and I have not yet decided to make a nomination.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I, too, would like to reiterate what I mentioned earlier, is that I've been here now since, 13 years, and not quite as many years as Mr. Fox, but 13 years nonetheless, and we have not gone through this process. And it appears to me that it seems to be some sort of oversight, and that oversight was caught by someone in the city attorney's office, or how I have to find out a little bit more about why we're doing this for the first time since 1984. That's why I'm a little concerned, or whatever year it may have been.
All right, so we're going to get a staff. Did you want a response on that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, very good.
Well, I don't really have anything to add to what I said before. It was internal. It came to our attention, and we moved to set up the process for recruitment.
Okay, perhaps that's something I can ask after, but I just wanted to be on the record that as saying that I have more questions about the process. That being said, obviously, all of you this evening are, as was already stated, very qualified. Some of you had backgrounds or half backgrounds which are more in line with open space, perhaps others less so, but nonetheless, in your own way, great qualifications to be the public representative on COSCA. That being said, I know that Mrs. Skay, who also works for the Mountain MRCA, and has been involved all her life with open space, is very passionate about the open space. And after having been on COSCA for 35 years, I didn't realize, Rory, that it was that long. It is a long time. And you obviously have an interest in continuing to serve on COSCA. And I, despite the fact that you've been on COSCA for that long, I would actually nominate you again simply because you have the tremendous experience and you know every little inch about our trail system. And that is very hard to match with the passion that the other candidates have. Of course, you can hit the ground running and learn a lot. But now that we have begun this process of public interviews, perhaps now there is some sort of transition progress, or I don't know what you want to call it, succession progress. You see now what COSCA does, but nobody knows COSCA as intimately as Rory Skay, and we are very much we are looking at many challenges for COSCA, and I think those challenges with the protection, with the water issues, with the drought, are best served by someone who knows our trail system and knows the ins and outs of how the trail system works, how to protect our environment, and conservation of wildlife as well as plant habitat. No one knows that better, I believe, than Rory Skay. And so, therefore, I congratulate all of you and would like to encourage you to not lose interest at all and continue to be an active member in COSCA through participating in our yearly trail cleanup day. And there are so many programs in which you can serve. I know Mr. Foreman is, he already left. Did he leave? He is on COSTAC, which is another trail committee. There are so many ways in which you can serve, and I think that those are very, very good stepping stones for you to move on to the board of directors. Start out with the subcommittees and then work your way up. And I highly recommend that to everyone. So that being said, I nominate Rory Skay for another 4 years on COSCA.
Yeah, I certainly agree with everything you've said, Councilwoman de la Peña. And I think it's unfortunate when we have so many highly qualified people that we have one person that obviously is ahead in her knowledge, her background, having been. I don't want to say it's an unfair advantage, but in a sense it is, because if this happens 4 years from now, she will have the same advantage that she does now, if you understand what I'm saying. And so maybe at the end of that time, maybe she'll be tired of us by then. But I think we might consider, if we're going to be doing this in public, so that it is really a level playing field, that the incumbent should not be able to apply again in the future. I don't know, but I second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded to reappoint Rory Skay to be the public person on COSCA. let me share my comments because they're a little bit different. First I meant every word that I said about the qualifications and the passion that you bring, but I will look you all in the eye and I will tell you there is no question Rory is the most qualified person in this room to serve on this board. No comparison. And so let me just set for the record, at least from my perspective, while she does have tenure and she has seniority, she is the most qualified person. And for me, that's why I'm going to support this motion. She's the most qualified person. That being said, I believe that she'll likely be the most qualified person 4 years from now. I don't see a problem with that. We have change in this board. I have served with any number of park district members and with 2 separate council members. Ms. Bill De Pena has been, her and I have served for now 13 years together, but we've had a couple of other council members. I'm the only one that's been on COSCA from the beginning, but we have turnover on this board by elections and just by different assignments. The fact of the matter is Ms. Skay has been the anchor and the guiding force on this board, notwithstanding that she is the public member, not elected. And that's one of the reasons why she chairs. So I'm of the belief, and if I'm still around, I'm going to, certainly assert the value of having somebody that's been around for a long time. We have elections every 4 years, and sometimes the most qualified people aren't necessarily elected. That's the part of the election process. If they just went by qualifications, we may have different people serving elected positions. But in this particular case, Ms. Gay is clearly the most qualified, and I think we are happy and fortunate to have her. And it's one of 5 members on this board, and so I would resist strongly any either formal or informal attempt at term limits with respect to the public member person. She has served this community well, and again, not to be repetitive, we are fortunate to have her, and she wants to continue to serve. She'll have this director's vote. Notwithstanding your personal qualifications.
Andy, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't mean to be controversial, but if that's going to be our standard, why would anybody else ever apply?
That's not a question I need to answer. The fact of the matter is, Ms. Gay has applied. We have 7 people.
No. I'm talking about 4 years from now. If our standard is she'll be the most qualified then too. Why would other people from the community apply for the job if that's going to be our criterion?
Well, the criteria is who's the most qualified person. And as we sit here tonight, Rory Skay is the most qualified person. And that's a unanimous vote from what I understand.
I understand that, but you're not answering my question.
I guess my answer is I think we should appoint the most qualified person and not disqualify somebody when they're the most qualified person simply because of tenure. So that's...
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, which is to renominate Rory Skay to be the public representative of COSCA due to your experience, which is obviously very impressive over the last 35 years. And by no means does this board want to discourage anyone from applying. And we will all have different opinions in the next few years, perhaps, but by all means, do not be discouraged and apply not only for this position, but we have dozens of other committees for which you can apply, including committees that fall under COSCA that deal with the open space. And I think that those, as I mentioned already, are very good stepping stones to get more involved in COSCA. All right, and then...
Thank you, Ms. Bill De Pena. So it has been moved and seconded. All in favor to reappoint Ms. Skay to the public member on the COSCA board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There is no opposition. Roy, congratulations. And again, I want to just thank all the candidates for your time and your effort. And just echo Ms. Bill De Pena's comments. We really, really encourage you to stay involved. If not for this position, other positions within the city. Thanks very much. All right. Item 4 is public comment. Do we have any public comment for tonight's meeting? All right, hearing none, we'll move to item 5. Let me ask the clerk, does Ms. Gay take her position now, or is it she gets sworn in next week? Okay.
No, she takes her position, and then her nomination will go before the park board and the city for the new term, but her current term doesn't end until...
All right.
replaced. So,
Roy, come on up. Pressure's off.
You can turn your mic off now.
Thank you all very much for your vote of confidence. I really appreciate it. It has been an extreme pleasure to be on this board for, I didn't realize it was quite that many years. I hadn't counted up. And I do hope to continue to help the city and the Park District and the whole Conejo Valley and our open space protection mandate. So we are now on to, see, we've already had public comments, have we not? And then we're Item 5, presentations and announcements. It's the COSTAC report. I don't see Mr. Kuba. Go ahead.
Yes, I get to fill in for the COSTAC, and it's been a while since we've had a COSCA meeting, so there's quite a few items that COSTAC wanted to mention. Earlier this year in the springtime, we had the Conejo Open Space Challenge, which is an amazing event. Certain trails were chosen throughout the district, and there's little goals with each one, and participants meet these goals, mostly picture taking, and it started off a few years ago. We had 14 participants a few years ago. This year we had 70 participants in it, which was fantastic, and about 45 of those participants actually achieved all the goals. Some comments from people were very positive because they actually went on trails that were basically in their backyard that they'd never been on. They'd always hiked the main trails, and here they were being asked to hike some of the little trails that were off in the farther reaches of our open space, and so they got to see parts of the open space that they hadn't seen before. And it was a great event, and it's obviously growing. I mean, it's tripled in size in the past 3 years, and we're really excited about it. And it's great on the social media. It flows really, really well. Also, in the springtime, we had the Spring Trail Work Day. As usual, a fantastic success. It's interesting from staff perspective because these are all events that we support as staff, and the volunteers do it, and it's interesting doing the reports on it. But Trail Work Day was really, really good. Lizard Rock got some work done on it, a new bench, and we did the gas line trail, so it was a great springtime activity. Trail Education Days was absolutely fantastic this year. The weather was perfect. We've had weather issues in the past, but this year was really, really good. An interesting thing about Trail Education Days is next year the curriculum in the schools has changed, and we're going to 4th grade with the kids. So that's kind of an interesting shift for us. And it's kind of exciting. It's different, you know. We also did for National Trails Day, one of our volunteers with COSTAC did an introduction to geocaching hike, and had a really, really good turnout, 11 participants, which is just about right for a geocaching hike. And they went about 2 miles on the hike and got to learn about geocaching and see some really great parts of the Los Padres Trail. So let's see. Upcoming events. National Public Lands Day, September 26th. COSTAC is going to be hosting a table and doing outreach at the Los Robles Trailhead, and they will also have a table at the Wildwood Trailhead to get information out about COSCA and COSTAC and COSIF.
What was the date of that, Matt?
That is September 26th. And of course, you are all invited to the Trail Work Day, which will be the Fall Trail Work Day, which will be October 17th. We will be meeting down in Santa Rosa at the Equestrian Center there. We're going to be doing some reroutes on the Lizard Rock Trail, a connector trail to the Elliott Mountain Trail, and some cleanup around the bridge and that area. Also some non-native plant removal. The Trail Work Days have grown significantly over the years. The spring one is now at 140 to 150 people. That used to be about 60 to 70 people, and now that's at 140. We expect almost 200 people to be at the Trail Work Day in October. So we're working hard out there. The volunteers are doing a fantastic job. I'm available for questions for any of those.
You'll need a megaphone or a microphone just to get the instructions out, huh?
Right.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kuba. Any questions of Mr. Kuba on that item? Ms. Mason, you have COSCA Volunteer Corps activity.
Thank you, Chair Skay. The COSCA Volunteer Corps has been very busy between February and August of this year. Just a few numbers for you. Trail Watch had 243 reports submitted and 299 volunteer hours donated. And the Adopt a Trail program had 97 reports filed and 200 volunteer hours submitted. And 9 new trails have been adopted, which is a lot. Usually we only get, 3 to 5 a year, but the East Los Robles Trail was adopted by Jerry Westby. The Long Ridge and Alapay Trails were adopted by the Adkins family. Moonridge Trail was adopted by the Carucas family. Sierra Vista Trail by Dennis and Loretta Bronk. Sunrise and Meadow Vista Trails were adopted by Andrew and Rebecca Harris. The TP Trail was adopted by the Conejo Valley Runners. And the La Jolla Trail was adopted by Bob and Deborah Moran. So it's been a busy year for the volunteers, which is
Indeed,
great.
and it's so generous of all the folks that have opted to adopt a trail. Wonderful program. Any other questions? No? Okay. We have a consent calendar from our last meeting, which was February 25th. Been moved and approved. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Let's see, we have COSTAC appointments coming up. Ms. Mason?
Thank you, Chair Skay, and I have a PowerPoint. The COSTAC vacancies were posted on March 4th, April 7th, and August 5th. Oh, you're welcome to stay for the meeting, or you can leave. Oh, no, it's okay. He's one of the applicants. There were 3 scheduled vacancies and 2 unscheduled vacancies. That's why there were 3 different vacancies posted. We received 16 applications through those recruitments, and the applicants were all interviewed on 4 different days, May 15th, 18th, 19th, and August 31st. The interview panel provided guidance to the nominations subcommittee. And the subcommittee recommendations are as follows. The members who are recommended are Kent Corral, John Cross, Jana Williams, Alwyn Kingerly, and Dorothy Sullivan. And the alternates, whose term is for 1 year, are Paul Bitteroff, Ben Pumphrey, who you met in the COSCA board public member interviews, Brian Stark, and Matthew Ward. And I'd like to just tell you a few things about each of these people. Kent Corral is a hiker and mountain biker, and he is a trail adopter. John Cross is a hiker, and he recently started managing our Adopt a Trail program, which is great because the previous manager resigned from that position. So it's a very helpful volunteer job. Jana Williams is a trail runner and mountain biker, and she is a co-founder of the Conejo Valley Trail Runners Club. Alwyn Kingerly is an equestrian and hiker and a native habitat landscape designer, and she is the only equestrian who applied, unfortunately. So we're glad we got one, at least. Dorothy Sullivan is a hiker, runner, and mountain biker, and she volunteers for Trails Education Days, and she's also a high school mountain bike coach. And then the alternates, Paul Bitteroff is a hiker and outdoor enthusiast, as is Ben Pumphrey, who you already met. And Ben and Dorothy have actually been attending COSTAC meetings and volunteering for outreach activities and other volunteer programs since they applied. So they've already been active on COSTAC, which is great. Brian Stark is a hiker and mountain biker and is the executive director of the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy. So he has a lot of experience with volunteers and land conservation and land management. And Matthew Ward is a hiker, runner, and has experience motivating and working with volunteers. So we have a very strong field. And with that, staff recommends that the Board of Directors approve the COSTAC members and alternates as recommended by the nomination subcommittee. And I'm available for questions.
Any questions?
No, I'd like to move to approve the recommendation.
Very good. We have
I'll
a motion.
second the motion.
Second, and then I'd like to actually, I know Olwyn Kingerly, and I'm glad that as the only equestrian, thank goodness, that at least one equestrian applied. As you mentioned, she also has a love for the environment, so I'm glad that she's on there. And as I mentioned this evening, Mr. Pumphrey, it's good to start with a committee, and that's exactly what you are doing. So congratulations and have fun.
Okay, very good. Yes, thank you very much. And if no other discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? That passed unanimously. And congratulations, Mr. Pumphrey. Next up is, this is a authorization to accept an open space donation of Lot 39 of Tract 4831-1, which is approximately 2.9 acres, from the Operating Engineers Funds. It's located on the north side of West Potrero Road, 250 feet north of Via Acosta.
Thank you, Chair Skay. You'll remember this item was continued from the February COSCA board meeting, and the reason it was continued is because there were questions about the drainage and the maintenance responsibilities. So I'm going to do a brief overview of the property and also answer the questions that were brought up by the board at the last meeting. So here is the property, and as Rory said, it's located on the north side of Lynn Road. It's adjacent to the Dos Vientos open space and opposite the Vista Del Mar open space. And it consists of 2.9 acres and contains non-native grassland and coastal sage scrub habitat. It slopes gradually to the southwest, and there's an existing trail on the property. The brush clearance on the property is maintained by the Homeowners Association through an easement, so they're responsible for that. And let me go to the next sheet. And the storm drain inlet on the property is maintained by the city of Thousand Oaks through an easement as well. COSCA will be responsible for maintaining the V-ditches that are on the property. But COSCA already maintains V-ditches throughout our system, and this is sort of a minor addition to that existing maintenance that we have. Here's a view of the property looking southwest. The property is in the foreground. You're looking at the Vista Del Mar open space on the other side of Lynn Road. And in terms of background, the Dos Vientos specific plan designated this as a possible future utility site for SCE, and SCE has since determined that they don't need it. And so the lot was offered to COSCA as open space. We had a public works engineer and hydrologist review the property and concluded that it is safe and stable, and that the topography and site conditions will not impact any adjacent residential property. And in conclusion, the parcel abuts existing open space, so it's highly desirable. The acquisition closes a gap in the open space ring around the city, and it's highly visible from Lynn Road and from adjacent open space. And staff will review the title report prior to the transfer of land. And the recommendation is that the Board of Directors authorize staff to accept the donation of Lot 39 from Operating Engineers as public open space. And I'm available for questions.
Ms. Bill-Della-Pena.
Thank you. Ms. Mason, is the presentation tonight different from what we were presented the last time we discussed it?
It is different slightly, just in that since that last meeting, we've had the public works engineer and hydrologist review the property and compare it to the areas in Dos Vientos that had the mudslides, and he determined that they're very different topographically and site makeup wise, and that this site does not pose any of the same sort of threats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I move approval of staff recommendation.
I'll second it, and I'd like to just follow up with what Director De La Pena said. I visited the property at 120 Calle del Prado with Mr. Friedel here, and that was really terrible what happened to that property. And I'm glad to hear that you've checked this out thoroughly. And I mean, the property below I guess that property is either owned by the city, is it, or that we visited? Or is that owned by COSCA?
City.
The city. Anyway, I'm glad that won't happen on this property. Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes unanimously. Finally, we have authorization to accept an 8-foot wide trail easement to provide access from Erbs Road to Glider Hill Open Space, located east side of Erbs Road, directly east and south of Hauser Circle.
Thank you, Chair Skay. So this map shows the location of the trail easement, and it's in front of the Congregational Church on Erbs Road, and it's near the new Erbs Road equestrian crossing. It's an 8-foot wide trail easement that's proposed for acceptance. The easement area is approximately 1,330 square feet, and it's part of a trail connection between Hauser Circle and the Glider Hill Open Space, and that's a popular equestrian route. This is a view of the existing trail that was built, and this is looking southeast. You can see the oak tree there, which is the reason why this trail easement is required, because the trail needed to be rerouted around the oak tree. It couldn't go directly adjacent to the sidewalk for the whole length of Erbs right there. So it basically pushed the trail onto the Congregational Church property a little bit farther than anticipated, and so we need to get an easement from them to maintain the trail. This is a view looking northwest, just for location and perspective. You can kind of see the new equestrian crossing here that goes basically across Erbs Road from Hauser to the trail. And the trail is an important connection. It's identified in COSCA's Trail Master Plan. And most of the easements on the church property are already secured and were required through conditions of approval for the church development. As I said, the Erbs Road widening is the reason why we need to get this small portion of the trail easement. And the church has been very cooperative to this point and has agreed to grant this easement to COSCA. In conclusion, this is a key link in the trail system, and it does not add new maintenance responsibility to COSCA because COSCA is already maintaining the trails in this area. And staff recommends that the Board of Directors authorize staff to execute the subject multipurpose trail easement. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Yes, Director.
This dotted line, Shelley, is the path?
Correct.
Of the path? Mm-hmm. Just for my information, is the part we're talking about I see is at the Congregational Church. Where does it go on Hauser when it goes westward?
When it goes west, it goes all the way to the end of Hauser, and then it crosses 2 private properties and goes to DD1. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, and then to Rancho.
Does it go by the property the Donna Fargo used to?
I don't know.
Across from the Central Lutheran? The Park District owns that now.
It's further north than that.
Further north?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a very interesting trail.
It does. The value is it links some of the internal equestrian areas to open space where they can ride.
Yeah, I used to live about a block from there. I never knew there was a trail. But I'd like to walk it sometime. Looks very interesting. I'd like to move approval.
We have moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none. We'll say that's unanimous. Finally, we have some information items. Ms. Mason on the Rancho Potrero Trailhead.
Thank you, Chair Skay. As you know, the Rancho Potrero Trailhead is now open. We had the ribbon cutting celebration on May 9th, 2015, and some of you were in attendance. And here's the location map. The yellow piece is where the trailhead is, and then the orange shows all the surrounding trails on Rancho Potrero, and then also into Dos Vientos and on the adjacent Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area land. This is the new restroom at the new trailhead with a gorgeous view of Boney Mountain in the background. Restroom with a view. And this is from the west side of the trailhead looking east across the parking lot. And the ribbon cutting celebration was a great success. It was well attended by residents, families, partner agency representatives and dignitaries. And we had some refreshments and some open space related giveaways, and as well as some interpretive materials there. We had some of our taxidermied animals and some reptiles and things. And there's Chair Skay right there talking, and Joe Gibson is in the picture too. And we encouraged attendees to hike the Rancho Potrero trails or ride their bikes or their horses. And we had some hikers and some equestrians riding the property, which was great. And here are all of our dignitaries at the ribbon cutting. And you can see Rory Skay in the middle, and Claudia Bill de la Pena, and Joe Gibson is there. And there it is, cut. So it's really exciting to have this new trailhead open, and we've seen that it's been well used so far. It's really popular with the equestrians and with all the trail users because it connects into Dos Vientos as well as the National Recreation Area. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Quick question about the parking. Is it being used much?
It is.
It is. Good.
Yes, by horse trailers as well
Horse
as just
trailers.
regular
Okay.
cars and trucks, yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
It was a lovely event.
It was,
and,
really. It was. It's beautiful. Thank you for attending.
Very pleased. Okay. Let's go to Mr. Kuba for the COSCA Ranger Operations and Maintenance Report.
All right. Just kind of want to start off and just say how proud I am of the Rangers and everything that they're accomplishing right now. They're all working very, very hard. We have full staff right now, so things are going very, very well. They're getting a lot done. Some of you may have seen this article in the Acorn earlier this year. We got a call from the Audubon Society, local Audubon Society, and they had a concern about the open pipes that are around the open space areas and all through town in every place. And the Audubon Society is really realizing how dangerous these are to small animals. So I brought it up to the Rangers, said, hey, here's the call I got, and what do you guys think we could do? And we were talking about spray foam and all these ways of filling it up or capping them. And since so many of our pipes are odd size, capping them wasn't going to work. So Ranger Carey and Ranger Jane said, why don't we stuff them with paper and then put a concrete cap on them and close them up. That way the animals can't get in there. So I said, yeah, let's go ahead and try that. So they started working on it, and they got quite a bit done in the first couple of days. And now the Rangers, whenever they find a pipe, they're actually filling them up. Audubon Society is very excited about it. They're actually trying to take this nationwide. And the picture that you see there on the left, if we were able to zoom in on it far enough, there's actually a live lizard in there. And that was one of the first pipes that Ranger Carey went up to. And so she put a long stick down there so the lizard was able to get out. But it is amazing how dangerous these pipes are for animals, and it's really a good thing that we're doing, and it's easy to do, and we're saving lives. So it's one of those feel-good stories. One of the biggest projects that the Rangers accomplished in the past couple months, and this is just one representation of the many projects, is that Indian Creek has a spring that flows very lightly across it, about a quarter mile down. And what we did was, there used to be railroad ties there. We pulled out the railroad ties, put down some geotextile matting, laid in a very strong rock bed so that the spring could still flow through the rocks. But we added dirt on top of it, compacted it in. And so now the trail's nice and smooth. The spring is able to flow very well. There's not railroad ties out in open space, and much safer, much more high-quality trail. We did about 10 Eagle Scout projects in the last year, and this is one that we're very proud of. The COSTAC brought up a bell project, bell boxes. They saw on some mountain bike trails, there's these bell boxes out and available for mountain bikers to just take a bell. You put it on the back of the bike, it rings and alerts equestrians and walkers that there's a bike coming. And it's kind of a public relations thing for the bikes. And we had 2 Eagle Scouts that we've installed 5 of these boxes. The Eagle Scouts also installed some benches. The first Eagle Scout actually designed on CAD the box layout. So we have a CAD drawing of how these boxes are made. And we have the sign. the bikes can just take the bell, keep it forever, or they can return it if they want to. It's become very popular. I think they've put out almost 3,000 bells are out in the community, and it's making a huge difference. We're actually getting comments from hikers that, thank you so much, I heard the bike, I was able to get out of the way, and the bikes are happy too. This was a dog rescue that the Rangers had earlier in the summer, a big Mastiff dog, and they got him up into the truck, cooled him off with water, and put a Ranger hat on him, and he seemed a little happier. But the reason for this picture, quite appropriately for today, is stay cool, make sure you have lots of water with you, make sure your pet has water with you, and make sure your pet's prepared to be out in the open space. Because it's a little difficult to get a big Mastiff dog out of the canyon. And I didn't do a sunset picture tonight, but this is at the Rancho Potrero parking lot grand opening the morning when Bruce got there. He got this picture of the coyote before you all got there. And so I think that's a really good omen and a great way to end this presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. Questions of Mr. Cooper? Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question about the bells. Are they donated? Do we purchase them?
Thank you. Yeah, they're donated in cooperation with COSF, the Open Space Foundation, Corba, which is the Concerned Off-Road Bicyclists Association, and they're actually working on a second round of purchase for the bells. So they're probably going to be buying about 5,000 more bells, and they're working with some local businesses and other organizations. So, and they're printed with the logo of Corba and COSF on them.
Very good. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really quite wonderful how entrepreneurial and inventive the Ranger Force is. And all the volunteers. Very good. Okay, we're on to board member comments. Any comments from members of the board? Yes, Director Fox.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Gay. One of the things that came out of the interviews tonight and some of the discussion was the idea of the so-called pressure of development on our community and on the open space. And I think it may be helpful is to have staff for our next COSCA meeting bring back a report just outlining the many different protections that exist here in the city, that have legislative actions that have been taken place, some voter-approved initiatives that actually. The fact of the matter is there's little or no pressure to develop the open space simply because of the protections that are there. A lot of folks don't realize that. I think it's a city, other than when we have elections, we don't do a very good job of educating the public that, in fact, the open space is protected by 2 voter initiatives, that it's virtually impossible to aim for any development to encroach in these open space areas, both through legislative action and voter-approved initiatives. So you could have, the example I always give is, you could have 5 developers elected to the city council, and they can't touch the open space. So absent voter approval of a change in our general plan, and then you can't take something, once something's in the open space inventory, you can't take it out without voter approval. So, but I think it might be good for everybody just to revisit that and bring back a report for COSCA, just so we can revisit that and see what factually is there.
Okay, we'll prepare that.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Will of the board, of course.
Oh, yes, that would be fine. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, we mentioned this at the visioning meetings, and and I really appreciate. I think it's a great idea that we're getting a refresher course or just a reminder at how our initiatives work, and perhaps we don't want to give you any more work, Shelley, because I know you were just all by yourself. But it would still be good, Mr. Prescott, maybe he can help, or Mr. Town.
Well, it would be our planning division.
It would be the planning division to also
familiar.
educate us or to remind us about expiration dates on these, and that and how does it work once these measures expire? Do they need to be renewed by the city council, a vote of the council, or do they have to go back to the voters once they sunset? So that would be good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Any other board member comments? Director Jones?
I don't have any comments.
Okay. I just wanted to, again, thank you all very much for your vote of confidence. I really appreciate it. And then I don't know if you all got copies of the grand prize winners of the Canea Open Space Trails Education Days winning essays. They're really remarkable, these kids, these fifth graders. They love our open space, and they'll tell you why. So maybe I could leave this to have for copies if anyone else would like them.
I can distribute them if you'd like.
Great. All right. Given that, it looks like our next meeting, pending a quorum, will be Wednesday, November 18th. Okay. If no other questions or comments,
Let me just say that I'm not teaching Wednesday nights this year, so
good.
I'll be able to make the meeting.
Okay, great. All right. Then we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.